So welcome everybody for our Bike Safe Fresno Smart Cycling Bicycle Education webinar. We're excited to bring you this virtual bicycle education event made by COVID. We've been very flexible with our program to move this online. We're excited to have at least one upcoming opportunity that is in person, but the educational part we decided we'll do online. On the housekeeping side, if you need Spanish translation, please choose the Spanish channel, and Maria is here for the interpretation.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Estamos muy contentos que nos puedan acompañar esta tarde para la opción de interpretación. Aparece un punto, luego seleccionará el español y silenciará el audio original. Le invitamos a hacer preguntas y comentarios en su lenguaje de preferencia. Si está usando la aplicación de Zoom por teléfono, por favor seleccionar los tres puntos. Le silenciará el audio original. Gracias.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure to address them. And we'll have some time after the presentation for some in-person question and answers as well. Yeah, collect your questions in the chat, please. And also, if you can use the chat as kind of like a sign-in sheet and write down your name and affiliation, that instead of a sign-in sheet that we would have at an in-person event, we'll keep track of who all attended this webinar. So thank you so much for introducing yourself there. So my name is Laura Gromis. I'm the Executive Director of the U.S. Green Building Council, Central California. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, independent here in the Valley. And our mission is to transform the way our buildings and communities are designed, built, and operated. We are doing a lot of educational, networking, and advocacy events. About today's session, we'll first have a little overview over biking and transformative climate communities. And then John Liu, Jeremy Doyle, and Ed Smith from the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition are going to go over smart cycling, the basics. And then we'll have some time for question and answers. This webinar is funded by the Transform Fresno program and the Strategic Growth Council and the California Climate Investment. We received funding from the California Energy Commission, and the Fresno Housing Authority has been a marketing partner to help us reach their residents in Southwest Fresno. You might wonder, this is part of the Transformative Climate Communities grant. Why is active transportation such an important element of transformative climate communities? And this little pie chart is giving you the answer. So if you look at this, those are the total CO2 emissions in California from 2017. They are 41% of the CO2 emissions are from transportation. So in order to address climate change, we really have to look at the transportation and the way we are getting around. And so one of the great elements on the community side is the usage of active transportation, meaning biking around and walking around. And so those are great solutions for localized transportation options. And
Laura, I apologize.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Would you please assign me as an interpreter so that I can go to my channel?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
My apologies for that. I'll have to figure out how this works. So one moment, I'll go right into this. Ed, you want to talk about, John, do you want to talk about this real quick?
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, my name is John Lane. Why don't I just go ahead and introduce myself. I'm with the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition with Ed Smith and Jeremy Doyle, and we are league cycle instructors. And I just want to say happy Bike Month to everybody. And hopefully you've been out there riding your bikes and being safe. But what we're going to be giving tonight is just a very short condensed class. Normally it's several hours. But we want to be able to just give you the key safety points tonight, because we do want you to be safe and to be alert and to be aware, how to follow the laws, the principles of the rules of the road. So that's what we'll be covering. And then for any questions, like Laura said, please enter them into the chat, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can.
And my apologies that we had the interpretation room not set up fully. It is enabled, and you're assigned as interpreter, Maria.
Okay, wonderful. Are you able to hear me?
I hear you, yes, in this channel.
Okay, so it looks like I'm still in the English channel. And so if
okay,
you click my name, and there are different options there. And so click on as a participant, and then you say assign as interpreter, and then I should be able to accept it.
So how I have to go onto you as participant?
Yes, also on your settings you can. And if you allow me, I'm just for the Spanish speaking audience, I'm going to ask them, let them know that we are working on it.
Okay.
Agradecemos muchísimo su paciencia y les pedimos disculpas. Estamos teniendo unos pequeños inconvenientes técnicos, y momentáneamente vamos a estar preparándonos para el canal en español.
So I go on to more, I go on to panelists, and then more. My apologies for those technical difficulties. And I don't change your role to attendee. I don't see where I can do this.
There should be there assign interpreter. When you set up the webinar, I know that I received the link for the interpretation, so it should be ready to go. It's just that there is a tiny, on one step right there, it says assign interpreter.
Okay.
Let's see if I'm able to.
You are assigned as interpreter.
So I just need to be transferred to the Spanish channel.
Okay. If we can, I work on this. I finish my part here, and then I'll try to move you over. My apologies about those difficulties. Once John is starting his, I figure this out. If you may translate this for anybody that might not need this.
De nuevo, les pedimos disculpas por los problemas técnicos que estamos teniendo. Vamos a tratar de acomodar aquí el canal en español.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So here I wanted to give a little overview over the TCC projects that are supporting active transportation. So first, we'll have the Southwest Fresno Trail that is between West and Thorn here going off California. And that is going to be a Class 1 bike trail with urban greening attached to it. Then we have the Clean Share Mobility Network, which is providing car sharing, van pools, and electric bike sharing. So within the next year, there's going to be an electric bike sharing program coming to downtown Fresno, Chinatown, and Southwest Fresno. And they're currently working out how this is going to get made possible. So hopefully we'll have much more information about this soon, but certainly something to be looking forward to. Then we'll have the Annandale Mode Shift project, which is going to include sidewalk improvement along Annandale here in the area of West Fresno Middle School. Then there's going to be an increased frequency of bus services on Route 38 from downtown to Jensen and Cedar. And then we'll have the Southwest Offside improvement along the new Southwest campus of Fresno City College. There is more information about all these projects on transformfresno.org. So make sure to check out the website about these TCC projects and other TCC projects included. The Bike Safe Fresno program is focused on bicycle outreach. We prepared on our website a bunch of information around safe biking and general infrastructure information. And the website is usgbccc.org/bikesafefresno. Amongst others, we are running a survey, what would help you to bike more around Fresno? And I know we've been promoting this a lot. So thank you to those that already filled out the survey. If you have not done so yet, you can use this QR code, or you can go to our website and fill the survey out there. There's a link easily accessible. And the goal is just to get very unbiased opinions of people on what would help them to get around better with their bike in Fresno. And yeah, there's a lot of different agencies working on making sure that the biking experience in this city is a better one. We have a nice flat city with mostly good temperatures for biking. So we need to have more people on the road biking around, and we need to have better bicycle infrastructure. And we look forward to hearing from you what else might be in the way of your biking experience. You might have asked yourself, so they told us that we qualify for a free helmet if we attend this event. How do we get this? So our next event is going to be on Saturday, June 5th. On that day, we're going to host a community bike ride in Southwest Fresno, and we'll be giving out helmets. So the helmet distribution starts at 9 a.m. and then the community bike ride starts at 10 a.m. If you would like to have a helmet, make sure to fill out the helmet survey. I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. And we are still confirming the location. So we'll share the location and all the details with you in a follow-up email to this webinar. All right. If you have any questions, my name is Laura Gromes. My email address is lgromes@usgbcc.org. Feel free to shoot me an email. And now I'm going to hand it over to John Liu, and he's going to take it from there with his team. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. And Ed will set up the PowerPoint. And again, my name is John Liu, and I'm with the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition. And going on to the next slide, I just want to mention that we at FCBC, we are a nonprofit. Our focus is to make bicycling part of everyday transportation, so you don't have to depend on a car. So we do a lot of education, advocacy, and we also do try to outreach to the areas that are underserved, particularly in the southern parts of town. So we try to have a lot of activities down there. Let's go to the next slide. And what we're going to talk about is, why do you want to ride a bike? There's a lot of good reasons. And how do you choose a bike? Where do you get it? What are the various types of bicycle facilities? And where is a good place to ride in Fresno? And using bus racks, in case you want to go across town, but you want to also hop on a bus. And then locking up, very important. You don't want your bike to get stolen. Carrying cargo. Helmets are extremely important for your safety. So Jeremy's going to talk about fitting a helmet, going through the ABC quick check. I'll be talking about the rules of the road. And then finally, Ed's going to finish us off with the 5 layers of safety. So next slide. First, we want to do a really, really quick poll question. And how often do you ride a bike? Is it almost every day, only once or twice a week, once or twice a month, a few times a year, or never? So let's just take about 10 seconds. If you could just quickly do that, just so that we have an idea of who's here. Okay, if we could just kind of wrap that up. And let's see if we could show the results. So this is a kind of a mix, and we do have folks who do not ride often at all. So that's great. We hopefully you'll have more and more interest in doing that, and we'll certainly try to give you tips. But we want to also give some reminders for everybody. Great, so let's go to the next slide. It's actually going to be another poll question. And what keeps you from riding your bike more? Is it because you don't feel that there's enough bicycle facilities? Do you just feel that anywhere you bike, it's not safe because of drivers who are not safe? Do you have concerns about your personal safety? You're concerned about maybe getting mugged or something along those lines, or dogs chasing you, or you don't have a place to lock up your bike when you go to the store, you go to your work. Do you feel that the weather is a little too oppressive to ride a bike in Fresno? Maybe your bike doesn't work, or maybe you just don't even have a bike. So if you could just check all that apply, and we'll give you about 10 seconds, and then we'll close that.
And the Spanish translation is available now. So if you need Spanish translation, you can go to the Spanish channel. And my apologies again for the technical difficulties there.
Okay, let's lock up the poll and see what we have. A lot of concern about unsafe drivers for sure, and infrastructure can help. So we will be talking about infrastructure. Some of you, so we'll give you some tips about how to get a bike. So great, thanks for taking that poll. All right, let's go ahead and move on, and let's talk about why do you want to ride a bike? And yeah, one of the most important reasons is the air quality, greenhouse gas, climate change, as Laura talked about earlier. And every single gallon of gas that you burn in your car, it actually produces about 20 pounds of greenhouse gases. So this is all the carbon dioxide and other pollutants going into the air, and that's what's causing the climate change. So we do really want to change people from their modes to move to more sustainable modes of transportation, walking, biking, transit, and also we want to change over the fleet to become more electrified. Gas is expensive. I mean, it's getting about $4 a gallon again. So if you ride a bike, you're going to save a lot of money. A lot of health benefits. Exercise is always good for you. Keeping the weight down, but it's also for preventing heart disease, your risk of cancer, diabetes, and it's also very good for your mental health. And it's going to make you happy, literally, with the endorphins that you experience as you're riding your bike. So hopefully something here resonates with why you would want to go out and ride a bike. Next slide. Now we're going to move on to Jeremy, and Jeremy's going to talk about how do you choose your bike.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I'm Jeremy with the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition. So choosing your bike, these are sort of self-explanatory, but these are sort of the 3 main things you should consider if you're purchasing a new bike. How much should you spend? That's up to you. Remember that you can spend a whole lot of money and still not be satisfied with something, so just keep that in mind. Do your research, see what you'll need. Where will you be riding? The different types of bikes are created for different types of terrain. If you need a mountain bike or a bike for pavement or a bike for commuting, something like that. And then that sort of leads into what do you want to use your bike for. And then that would dictate, again, the design and type of bike you would want to use. Okay, we go to the next slide. So types of bicycles. There are a lot of different kinds. These are just a few. If you know of any others, you can list them in the chat. See how wise you are. But some of the more interesting and sort of recent models, or I suppose design styles of bikes, are at the bottom here: cargo, folding, and e-assist. So a cargo bike would be a bicycle that usually has some sort of large box or something like a shelf built onto it that would let you carry bags of groceries or children or something like that around town. Folding bikes are they're full-size bicycles, but they usually have small tires, and they are designed to collapse and fit under a desk or into like a storage compartment on a bus or something like that. So it makes them very convenient for commuting, traveling. And e-assist or e-bikes, we can go to the next slide, that's fine. Those are the new hotness now. They've got a battery and motor, and they can usually, I think the older style had a throttle sort of, but those are less common now. They usually have a e-assist, so you pedal and it increases the motor power output as you pedal harder, and so it effectively makes you a stronger rider. And those are good for, as it says, going up hills or long commutes. And it'll help you, especially in Fresno heat, it'll help you keep from being a sweaty mess if you have to bike all the way to work or something like that. They are more expensive. They'll start around $500 and they'll go up into the thousands pretty quickly, but they're a good option if you wanted to do some extensive riding and not hurt yourself in the process. Okay, go to the next. Where to get it? There's several options. Neighborhood bike stores are usually the best option, but they can be the most expensive. They'll have the best service, usually the best expertise and advice. Big box stores, Walmart, Target. You can get cheaper bikes there. They're, in my opinion, more likely to break down. And if you have a broken bike, that's not a bike that you'll ride or enjoy. Online is similar to the big box stores. Just if you buy from the big stores or online, it might be worth taking it to a bike store to have them just check it over and make sure it'll work. And then used is my preference. I usually get all mine off Craigslist and fix them myself, or take them to the bike store and have them service it and check it out. I think that covers that. Go to the next. And this is, I think, Ed.
No, this is John. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to cover the various types of bicycle facilities. So we have 4 classes, class 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'll quickly cover them. The best type of facility for a lot of people is the class 1. It's the dedicated trail or shared youth pass. So this is one that's off the street. People feel a lot safer. However, you do share it generally with pedestrians, dog walkers, joggers, baby strollers. So it's not just bicyclists, and you got to make sure that you're not running into other users of the path. These can be very expensive to build. While a lot of people like these, especially for recreational rides, they are expensive. And a lot of the trails are actually in the north part of town, where there were either prior railroad tracks, and that's where the right-of-way is, or they've been in new development areas. And thankfully, the middle of Fresno will soon get the Midtown Trail, so it's going to allow a lot more people to be using these dedicated trails. The next type is class 2. And this is the very common striped bicycle lane on the street. And in general, people aren't allowed to park in bike lanes. And Fresno has a great network of continuous bike lanes. There's some areas that still have street parking, and that's where sometimes it's more difficult to get these bike lanes in. The next type is class 3. And in general, there's really nothing special about the road or the street that has these. There's no dedicated feature. Sometimes it's just a sharrow, which is a share lane marking, or the sign. The sharrow is to indicate for the bicyclists generally where you're going to ride, and also notify the drivers. We'll be talking about where and when bicyclists could actually take the full lane. The reason why these class 3 facilities are placed is it's either because there's a gap in the class 2 bicycle network, and this kind of gives direction for the bicyclists where to continue. Or a lot of times the street is just too narrow to have a dedicated bike lane, because bike lanes, generally they have to be a minimum of 5 feet wide when it's along a curve. And at this location, which is along McKinley by Fresno High, there is not enough width to provide that. Class 4, the next one is the newest type. And what we're looking at is our street in downtown. And there's a lot of emphasis to put class 4 cycle tracks or separated bikeways, because it provides a higher level of comfort, a lower stress network for bicyclists to use. People feel safer using these because there is some kind of physical feature that's separating the bicyclists from the traffic. It could be, as in the picture, a row of pylons or channelizers. It could be a row of parked cars, and here you can see there are parking stalls. It could be planters. So various features that can provide the separation. One thing I do want to mention is that when there are driveways and cross streets, you do want to be very careful, particularly if there are parked cars, because sometimes those parked cars could block the visibility. But City of Fresno does have a lot of these planned. Stretches of Belmont Avenue and Palm Avenue will be getting this. And these do really attract a lot of bicyclists, so it is a good thing to see. Let's go on to the next slide. And this will take us to our last poll question. Where do you think our local governments should be focusing their transportation dollars as far as building which type of bicycle facility? And let's go to the next slide. And just as a refresher, is it the class 1? And these are the very expensive dedicated trails. The class 2 bike lanes, which are relatively cheap. It does take away street parking, or sometimes you actually have to take away a lane to put in the bike lane. Class 3, which is just putting a sign, or the class 4, which is kind of the in between the trail and the bike lane. It provides some separation. So where do you think local agencies should be investing their money? Let's take about 5 more seconds. And here, just pick one where you think that the local governments should emphasize.
Nearly everybody filled it out. We'll just give the last people the opportunity to pick, and then we'll close it.
Okay, why don't we close it out? Let's see what people think. People like cycle tracks. So that's the good kind of in between. And so it kind of lines up what a lot of government agencies are planning to do. So that's good to know. Great, well, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And we're gonna pass it on to Ed, and he's gonna tell you where you should be riding in Fresno.
Hey everybody, my name's Ed. I'm a bicyclist in Fresno. I've been living in Fresno for quite a while without a car. I live in downtown, 93721 zip code. And I get everywhere I need to go on my bike or on the bus. And as you can see from this map of the bikeways in Fresno Clovis, there are quite a few roads that do have those class 2 bike lanes that John talked about. You can find a few of the class 1 bike lanes on here as well. If you look at up at like Herndon Avenue or the Sugarpine Trail, the Old Town Trail going down through Clovis. And you can also see some of those yellow class 3 bicycle routes, which usually form, play the role of connector between facilities when there's a little gap. So the nice thing about Fresno, it's a flat square grid, and you can find a way to get where you want to go. You don't have to follow one certain route. There's usually multiple ways to pick. You can take a slightly more roundabout route, which is quiet on quieter streets where you can find your bike lanes or neighborhood streets, or you can just ride on the arterials. A lot of them have bike lanes. And when you become a confident rider, you can just ride on those streets. So there's lots of different routes and ways to go. These grids here are about, these little lines are about half a mile apart. So you can kind of count the lines and look at that scale bar at the top there to kind of get a sense of what the distance is that we're talking about here. If you zoom in on the map, you can see kind of more clearly. You may want to try something like, Google Maps has cycling directions. Apple Maps on iPhone does now too. But when you zoom in a little more closely, you can kind of start counting those squares, and 2 of those squares is a mile. So you can kind of see where things are. So what I would recommend you do is, if you haven't done a lot of bicycle riding in Fresno before, is get your bike out, make sure it's serviced and ready to go, make sure you're feeling good, and pick a nice quiet Saturday morning and plot a route to your neighborhood park or the library, and just look at the map, pick a good route, and give yourself plenty of time. Don't have any deadlines to get there. Save the first ride to work for after you've had a little bit of experience trying this out. And just try getting to the park and getting back. Take your time, don't rush it. And remember that bicyclists can always convert to pedestrians just by hopping off and walking on the sidewalk if things get too stressful. And if you're riding around town, a lot of people say, well, the bike lanes are not maintained, or there isn't a good bike lane to ride. What can I do about that? There's 2 options here to get involved. One is Fresgo. So these are both for City of Fresno residents, and there are other alternatives as you check City of Clovis website or the County of Fresno website. There's similar options for other agencies within the County of Fresno. But if you specifically live in the City of Fresno, you can download to your phone, iPhone or Android phone, the Fresgo app, and create an account. And then as you're riding around, if you see an obstruction in the bike lane, if you see a pothole in the bike lane, glass in the bike lane, you can open up your phone, take a photo, and open up a new request here. And that'll go into the City of Fresno call center system, get routed to the right department. And you can put in your email address to be notified when things get taken care of. So that's one good way. And maybe that's another idea for kind of a beginner ride. Spend a Saturday riding around, taking photos, and know that there is no bounty, unfortunately, for collecting these. We can't get paid for this, but you will get the benefit of a better community that is where the cyclists are being heard by the folks in the city who are in charge of street sweeping, road maintenance, parking, etc. So I do recommend you download that app and check it out. You can also zoom in on the map and see other things that have been reported near you. Now, let's say you're doing your little exploring on your bike and you're trying to get to the park and there's just no bike lane and this is a problem in your neighborhood. Then what you should do is check out the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee in the City of Fresno. That is a citizen body which meets and is appointed by council and the mayor, and actually meets with Public Works and discusses issues. You can attend the meetings. They're open to the public, and you can make it heard. Say, I'm trying to ride to school with my kids, or I'm trying to get to work. There's no bike lane in my area. What's the plan to fix that? And the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee is one good place to get involved. Attend the meetings. They've been online during COVID, so you can just jump on the Zoom and see what they're doing. Of course, this Fresno is big. Let's say you live near me downtown, and you want to go to a nearby park. Well, no problem. There's some neighborhood parks nearby, or maybe make it a couple miles, 2 or 3 miles out to Roding Park. but maybe one day you want to go to Woodward Park and you want to check out the Japanese gardens up there. But that is just too far for you. You need a little assistance. Well, that's what the bike racks are for. This is a great time to try the bike on the bus, because at the moment, there is no fare on the City of Fresno FACS buses. You can ride for free. These racks look complicated, they're intimidating, and you may feel a little stressed out when it feels like a whole busload of people are watching you try and get your bike on that rack, and the bus driver is impatient because he's got another stop to go to. But don't feel that way. The bus drivers are very helpful. They're very patient. They always wait for me to get that rack down. You can see that little yellow handle. You can squeeze the handle to lower the bike, lift your bike up into the tray with the front wheel underneath that extendable hook thing that you lift up and lower down. And have your U-lock ready, and it only takes another couple of seconds to lock your frame to that arm. So you have to have the key to get the bike out. Bus drivers don't mind waiting that extra few seconds for you to do that. It's worth a peace of mind. Those bikes, racks, unfortunately do only accommodate standard bikes. So they won't hold tandem bikes. They won't hold trikes. And it's a little tricky sometimes if you have big baskets or racks or luggage. So you should plan to get that to that stop a little bit ahead of time so you can get your luggage off the bike and carry that in with you. Most of the buses now have room for 3 bikes. So you can see this rack is folded up, but you can see the 3 slots. So when that thing is laying down, you can get 3 bikes, and they alternate handlebars, left, right, left, right. So yeah, you should definitely give that a try. It's totally fun, and you can ride downtown, put your bike on that tray, take it all the way up to Woodward Park on that BRT1. It takes about 35 minutes, and then you can go right around Woodward Park, nice and quiet and easy. Hop back on, and ride back down. And even if you get to the bus stop and the bike rack is full with 3 bikes, well, you've got a bike, so you can just ride to the next stop or wait for the next bus. I've always enjoyed taking my bike on the bus. I do recommend a U-lock. I mentioned a U-lock. Take your U-lock with you, lock your bike to the bus rack when you're on the bus, and learn how to use that U-lock. You need at least, at minimum, a good bike lock. If you don't know the options, there's 3 options. There's 2 or 3 options on the screen right here. One is the standard D-shaped U-lock. Another is a hardened chain with a bike-specific padlock. And you can also add as an optional extra that cable. I would not recommend a cable lock with a combination lock on it. Do not leave your bike out of your sight with a weak lock on it. If you have a weak lock like that and you're planning to just walk up to an outside vendor or whatever, or if you're speaking to some friends in the park, you can leave your bike locked up with a low security lock, but don't leave it out of your sight. Use that U-lock. You can see we've locked it up to a pole here in this photo, the top photo and the bottom photo. In the top photo, I've secured only the front wheel and the frame. That's going to be, the back wheel might be a little harder to get off, but if you're going to be leaving the bike for long, get that cable lock so that you can loop the cable lock through the back wheel. And now you've got both wheels and the frame secured, and you've taken off all the removables like your lights and bags, and you should be good to go. Carrying cargo is most of the fun of riding a bike, and there's tons of ways to do it. You can just get yourself your backpack and just use your book bag, toss whatever you need into it, and you're good to go. That's the easiest and quickest way to get started. But of course, in Fresno, you're going to get sweaty when you're carrying a bag on your bike when you're riding your bike around. It also looks cooler if you have a nice basket like that. So you can get a basket on the front or the back. You can secure it to the bike on a standard bicycle rack. You can also get bicycling specific bags. Bike shops, REI, a good place to get them. You can find them online. But whatever you have is what is the best to get started. So make sure that you're able to carry things. Do not Do not hang grocery bags on your handlebars when you're riding down the road. That's not a good way to go. That could get the bag caught in the front fork, and you could endo and go over the bars. Don't want to do that. So it's worthwhile finding good luggage to carry. So that's all I've got for now. I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy, and now Jeremy's going to have to rush because I took so long.
Okay, so helmet fitting. Everybody falls off their bike at least once. And so it's good if your helmet doesn't just fly off your head when that happens. So if we look at our model here on the screen, around area number 1, his helmet is at the right height above his eyes. It's not too far back on his head. It's not too far forward on his head. And that comes out to approximately 2 fingers between your eyebrows and the top of the helmet, or the front edge of the helmet. It varies for everybody, but that's a good rule of thumb. Point number 2 on the model is the side straps. Where they come together should be right under your ears. If it's too far forward or too far back, the helmet won't seat on your head properly. It might fall off more easily. And the last point, number 3, is the strap needs to be tight, and less than a ½ inch comes out to pretty much, if you can fit more than 1 finger in between your face and the strap, it's probably too loose. So usually, for me, it's where it's just uncomfortable is about where the proper tightness of the strap is. If it's too uncomfortable, it's probably wrong, and if it feels just fine and you don't even notice it, then it's probably too loose. But those are some good rules for helmets. Next slide. So the ABC quick check. This is a good little, I don't know what you call this, mnemonic or a rule for checking out your bike before you go for a ride. So A is for air. You want to check the air in your tires. You'll want to inflate your tires to the right pressure, which is listed on the side of the tires. And so it's good to have a pump with a little gauge on it that will let you get to that, whatever's listed, 50 PSI or something like that, whatever's listed on the tire. B is for brakes. Check your brakes, make sure they work, make sure that the lever doesn't hit the handlebars. If it hits the handlebars, then your brakes aren't grabbing the wheel well enough, and you won't be able to stop very well. C is for cranks, chain, and cassette. That's pretty much the whole drivetrain. You'll want to just grab your pedals and shake them around a little bit, because that piece of metal that the pedal is attached to is called the crank, and you want to make sure that won't just fall off as you're going along. Check your chain and cassette. The cassette is the gears on the rear wheel. Make sure your chain and cassette are not too rusty and broken. Quick is for quick releases. If your bike has quick releases, make sure they're tight. If you look at my photo, my image, you'll see a quick release here. So usually what I do is with it loose, with it out, pointing straight out, can't really see that anyways, but with it pointing straight out, you want to tighten up the one sort of nut side, and then bring that lever over and tighten it up against, or tighten it up into its right position, and then give your wheel a shake to make sure it doesn't come off, and a spin to make sure it doesn't rub the brakes. Check is for checking the bike. Ride it in a circle quickly just to make sure it's safe to ride, and then you are good to go for a bike ride. And next slide.
Yeah, okay, it's back to me. Thanks, Jeremy. So I'm going to very quickly cover some rules of the road. So the first thing is your safety really depends on how you're perceived out there. You need to make sure that you're visible, that you're communicating with drivers, and you're being predictable. As a bicyclist, you have all the responsibilities as any driver, and you could actually ride on any public road with the exception of some freeways. So if you want to ride on a freeway, you actually have to look on a sign that says whether bicycles are prohibited. And if you really want to ride on a freeway, you could actually ride on the 41 freeway between Friant Road and Children's Boulevard if you want to go up to Madera. As a bicyclist, you do have to obey all traffic signs and stop signs and every single other traffic law. And you always want to ride on the right side of traffic. You don't want to ride on the wrong side of traffic in the rightmost lane that takes you where you want to go. Some people think it's safer to ride on the opposite side of the road because you can see traffic heading to you, but that's actually one of the most dangerous places to ride because drivers are not expecting you there. Okay, next slide. Scanning. It's very important that when you're riding your bike, you're continuously scanning to see what are the potential threats out there. And if you want to change lanes, make a left turn, just the mere act of turning your head is communicating to drivers that you're gonna potentially move your location. And then when you're riding straight, you don't want to be weaving across cars because you still want to be very predictable and have drivers be able to see where you're going. So you're constantly scanning. Next slide. And quickly reviewing signaling. It's very important to signal your turns because again, you want to be predictable for drivers so that they know what you're going to do. If you want to make a left turn, left hand out, that's easy. If you want to make a right turn, you got two choices. One is right hand out, or you could actually have your left arm going straight up. The benefit of using your left, first of all, your right hand is on your brakes, but also your left side of the body will be more visible to motorists, but you do have a couple options. And when you do signal, you don't have to signal continuously through the turn. It's just before you make the turn, do it for about 5 seconds, and then put your hands back onto your handlebars and actually make that turn. Next slide. Positioning. Do you actually take the lane or do you want to be on the right side of the lane? And it's going to depend upon the width of the lane. If the lane is too narrow, you don't want to be squeezing yourself on the very right side of the lane where you potentially could actually run off the road and fall down. If it's too narrow to be shared with a vehicle, you could share it. You could actually take the lane. But you also want to be smart about it. Okay, is it safe to do it? Do you want to do it on a high-speed road where everyone's driving 60 miles per hour? Maybe, maybe not. So it's always good to plan ahead and look for routes where you feel that you could actually do it safely. So in a residential street or a lower speed road in the Tower District, yeah, take the lane. In other places, you got to really have good judgment. And safety is always the most important thing. So always consider your safety first. Next slide. Intersection positioning. So where you're actually positioning yourself is also communicating to the drivers. If you're going to make a left turn, you're going to want to be on the left side of the lane. If you want to go straight through an intersection, you're generally going to want to be in the middle of the lane. Unless it's the extra wide lane, then you could be on the right side. If you want to do a right turn, then you're going to want to be on the right side. So the concern is you want to try to avoid left or right hook crashes. And that's why where you're going to go straight and drivers are going to make a right turn in front of you, that's what you're going to try to avoid. And that's why you may want to be in the middle of the lane when you're going straight. Next slide. And again, when you're going straight, you should be going in the rightmost lane that takes you to the definition. So you're not supposed to be going straight in a right turn lane. So you want to weave into the through lane, but if you don't feel that that's safe, either because it's too crowded to get over or because you don't feel safe, the speeds are too high. As Ed said earlier, you could always be a pedestrian. You could get off your bike and you could walk it on a crosswalk. I do want to mention in the next slide, one of the newest things that's being done now is actually putting shared lane markings, sharrows in right turn pockets. And the next slide will show that. And this is over at Gettysburg and Blackstone. So now where you do have this marking and the signing that says that you could go straight through a right turn lane, you're able to legally do that. So you're going to be seeing more and more of these. And this is at locations where there's not enough width to actually have a bicycle lane. Next slide. Riding on sidewalks, generally it's not recommended because just like riding on the wrong side of the road, drivers are not expecting you, particularly when drivers are pulling out of driveways and side streets. They're generally only looking to their left. If you're coming from the right side, they may not see you. And this is actually has resulted in a lot of bad collisions. So avoid riding on sidewalks. If you're a little kid and you're going to be closely supervised, then yeah, but you have to be absolutely closely supervised. Also know the law. Local jurisdictions can regulate where you could ride your bike on a sidewalk. For instance, City of Fresno, you're not allowed to ride your bike in a business district like in downtown. You could ride your bikes in other locations. City of Clovis, you're not allowed to ride your bike on any kind of sidewalk. Next slide. So rules for the road. So we talked about being predictive. The one thing I do want to point out is avoid the door zone. And you want to stay away from about 3 feet from cars, because if someone swings open the door, that could actually cause a very, very serious crash. So for the people who drive the cars, absolutely look for bicyclists who potentially could be riding. So there's responsibility on both sides. Next slide. Crossing railroad tracks, you want to do it as close to a 90-degree angle as possible, because you don't want to get your wheel stuck in the railroad track where you potentially could be falling over your handlebars. Next slide. And wearing. And the thing I want to mention is you don't have to wear fancy bicycle clothes to ride your bike. Just wear your everyday clothes. Now, if you are going to be taking long rides in hot weather, then you may want to use moisture wicking fabrics so you're not just soaking wet. And certainly if you become a more proficient rider and are going to be doing some really long treks, then yeah, you may want to get more bicycle specific clothing. But for the most part, you don't need anything special. As the note says, watch out for when you're wearing long pants, get a leg band, or you can actually tuck your pant leg into your sock, or just kind of roll it up. And in cold weather, wear layers, because you do heat up as you're riding your bike. So you want to be able to take off your jacket, and especially if you're taking a longer ride. Next slide. Night riding. It's very important to have the proper equipment for riding at night. So you want to be able to see where you're going, so you have lights that are bright enough, but you also want to have motors to be able to see you. You are required to have a front light. And when it's pitch dark, you're not going to want to have flashing, but you can actually use lights during the daytime. You're going to make yourself more conspicuous and have it on flash mode during the daytime. At the rear, you're not required to have a light, but it's strongly recommended, especially putting it on flash. And the next slide will also show you some of the other requirements as far as having reflectors on your pedals or your shoes. And also you need pedals on the side of your bike. Next slide. Ed's going to wrap it up with the 5 layers of safety.
Layer 0 is how to unmute Zoom safety. So yeah, thanks, John. That was great. And thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for everybody in the comments. Agreed, we need to keep that chain lubed. And a couple of other comments there that are good. What if you're in a group? So the general rule of thumb is you are responsible for your own safety when you're on your bike. So ride your bike and take care of yourself. You're not a school of fish, you're a bicycle rider. So be careful of that. Although there definitely is safety in numbers, and it is a lot of fun to ride in a large group of people. But if, for example, you're in a large group and the group gets split by a red light, then the group in the back should wait for the red light, and the group in front should notice and wait for their friends. And yeah, we have the roll up the pants and tuck them into the sock. Factions, I'm definitely the tuck them into the sock faction, because that looks great at the office. So the final part of our presentation here are the 5 layers of safety. So what are the 5 layers of safety? We're going to go through the 5 layers here. If I can get my little controller to control. The first layer is bike control. This is where you learn how to ride a bike. About half of adult cyclist crashes are just single rider falls. You're not getting hit by a car. You're not, you're just falling over, right? Because you are not controlling your bike carefully enough. And sometimes it's because the bike's in bad condition and something happens. You're not looking where you're going. So, you know, you should first and foremost be a good bike rider and have good bike control. You can take our in-person classes to learn more bicycle safety and bicycle control, bicycle hazard avoidance maneuvers, for example. But whatever you do, ride your bike often and learn how to control it and ride smart. But that's only part of it. Just because you're a great bike rider, we also have to obey the law. The law is there, and one of the primary benefits of the vehicle code is that it helps us understand what others on the road are going to do. It makes us all more predictable. Following the law makes you more predictable. If everybody rides their bike on the right, then the motorists will expect to see us on the right, not coming the wrong direction. Half of the car-bike crashes where there's a crash involving a car and a bicycle, it's 50-50. Half of those are caused by cyclists who are making unsafe decisions. So you should follow the traffic laws. Stop at red lights, stop at signs, use your signaling, use all the vehicle code. That is your way of communicating and staying safe while you're on the bike, not just bike control. The third one is positioning. This is taking the bicycle, the vehicle code kind of to the next level, and it's some kind of optional extra behaviors that aren't strictly required by the vehicle code, but you can discourage other people's mistakes by communicating clearly, not only using hand signals, but also by using your positioning on the road. Motorists' unsafe decisions cause about half of the car-bike crashes for adult cyclists. So you need to know when to control the lane or when to share the lane. Controlling the lane, you know, it depends on the speed of the traffic. It depends on the width of the road. It depends on a lot of factors. You're going to use your judgment to make a decision that is safe for you. But if you are in the gutter on the right side of the road in a very narrow lane, and a car is coming up from behind at maybe a slightly unsafe speed, that car is making judgments from far away, and he is seeing a wide open lane with a cyclist safely off to the side. And so he approaches you from behind. And then he gets up close to you, and too late, he discovers the lane is actually too narrow to share. So then he has to slow suddenly and swerve to avoid you. Whereas if you were in an environment where everything is nice and slow and you can communicate by being in the center of that lane, that driver can see you from far back. The same thing is true of what John said about positioning for turns in an intersection. If you're going left, get over in that left scan, signal, and merge when it's safe to do so into that left turn lane. So that's positioning. Avoidance, or, you know, things are going to happen. People are going to make mistakes. People are going to be distracted. There's things you cannot control with other people on the road. So what you need to do is, once you've learned bike safety and safe riding, once you obey all the laws, once you communicate your position, then you also have advanced skills, handling skills that you can learn to avoid collisions. When you're in a critical situation, there's ways to avoid a collision and to avoid an obstacle on the road, do a quick stop. If you practice these techniques, they're not really very natural. They're not very intuitive, but they are techniques for stopping quickly. So if you grab your brakes too hard and fly over the handlebars, there's ways to stop more quickly without flying over the handlebars. You shift your weight back. You use both brakes evenly without grabbing too much front brake. So learn those avoidance techniques. And finally, the passive safety. When all else fails, that's why you're wearing your seatbelt in the car. That's why we tell people to wear a helmet on their bike. And again, optional extras above and beyond. Helmet is definitely required for everybody under the age of 18. Strongly recommended for every rider. It's going to protect your head in the case of a crash. Also, wearing safety glasses or eyeglasses and a helmet will protect your eyes and your hands. So that is it for our presentation. we're almost done. I think we've covered everything in the chat, but if there are any other questions, we'll be happy to entertain them.
Yeah, thank you so much, John, Ed, and Jeremy. So if you have any questions, just raise your hands. Yeah, Ed, you want to go over the last slide while people are thinking of their questions?
Sure thing. Just wanted to remind you about the U.S. Green Building Council Central California website at usgbccc.org. Go there to the /BikeSafeFresno. We have a survey up there. We'd really like to get your input on how we can improve bicycling in Fresno. And there's also other resources up there that you can access, and you can contact us through that website as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ed. And Jury, we're gonna have a ride June 5th in Southwest Fresno. It's a Saturday morning, and we'll hope you can join us there for this. And we'll send out an email with more details. I think Ed addressed all the questions that came in the chat. Yeah, unless there's any more questions, we are done with the presentation. And yeah, hope to see all of you on June 5th for our bike ride through Southwest Fresno, and for you to pick up your helmet as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Remember, it's a bike to work week this week. It's a beautiful week, so make sure you use your Thursday and Friday to get out your bike to work or to school, which is always fun as well. And try to use your bike as much as possible in your neighborhood to get around. Thank you so much for your interest in learning more about biking. Make sure you check out the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition. They always have great things coming up, and it's a coalition of lots of great folks that know a lot about bikes, as you could see today. So thank you to those. Thank you to Maria, our interpreter. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.